Some people are quite easy when they chat with others and others are not. And Paul, you now think of two terms. You think of, oh yeah, some people are more introverts and others are more extroverts. And this is what we're going to talk about today. However, before we talk about this, I have to get to one point. You probably saw on our social media that for whatever reason, you probably know that I did an MBA, an executive MBA with the University of East London, 40,000 people studying there, and 12 people of all the people there are the alumni of the month of all the people who graduated there, probably a 5 to 6 digit amount of people. And for whatever reason, someone put me forward and I became the alumni of the month of February 2025. I got the news just last week. It went all over social media. So thank you very much for all the congratulations, but also thank you very much for all the support I got from you. Really appreciate it. So thank you for making this happening. But now let's get back to the topic. We have to talk about the usual terms, here, introverts and extroverts. So first, is this the right term? And that's the start. No, it is not. We talk about extraversion. I know that extroverts mean well, it's accepted. Even in writing, you can use that. However, in psychology, it's the wrong term. You talk about introversion or extraversion. And we're going to use the correct scientific terms here. So is it just introverts, extroverts? No, wrong. It's extroversion or introversion. Do we only have these two dimensions? No, we do not. We have more than that. Unfortunately, often people just see two dimensions and then they come to very quick conclusions. Usually you hear, people with extroversion, these are usually leaders. People with introversion are more the people who are a bit better on the subject matter, research, more sitting in their offices doing the background work. And that's also a generalization which is simply wrong. We need more substantiation. We need more substantiated knowledge, more facts, proof, evidence, science in this discussion. And we also need to know, what do these categories mean for business? And there are more than two dimensions. So we need to know how many dimensions are there and what they mean for organizations. When we talk about when did this all start, because you might wonder, is this just a thing which was always there, or who started with the whole extra intro thing? And it was Carl Jung in 1921 when he wrote about the psychological types. He was the first one publishing about this. Today, of course, we have more modern approaches. There's the Big Five personality model, which is still often used in assessment centers and different other contexts. Very important here. Not a single psychological test can show you the full personality of a person. You need professionals for that. So be aware that you cannot choose the right people for the next promotion just by simply making them do a test. When we look into science, how things develop, we have Eisenach's theory of personality in 1967, even strengthening by de Jong in 2010. Fleece and Gallagher then in 2009 were the ones who talked about that there are more than two versions, more than two dimensions. So 2009 is pretty young science that we have here. Adam Grant in 2013 put strong substantiation to that, strong scientific backing to ambiversion. Ambiversion is that people flip between and switch in between the spectrum. So very important is it's not extraverted or introverted and it's switch on, off, you're the one or the other. First, it's a spectrum. And second, ambiversion means that in different contexts you might behave differently. And that is but when I heard that term a bit more than 10 years ago, probably 50, roughly 12, 13 years ago when it got published, that was the first time where I really found myself finding a home in this model. Because when people told me, oh, you're rather extroverted because you work in consultancy, business management, and you are an interim manager, you also train and a coach, so you're extrovert. No, this is not always correct. In some situations, yes. But put me in a room with strangers in a networking event. I know that the answer in the UK to that is, oh, you're a bit shy. The answer is alcohol in the UK. No, alcohol is not a solution. So I really have different situations where I work differently, and many people can relate to that. So, for example, if you put me in a room with people who say, oh, we're all speakers, as you know, when someone says I'm a keynote-only speaker, the usual person is big ego, very little scientific substantiation to what they claim, big claim with no evidence, usually straightforward nonsense, overpriced service that no one needs. And speaking associations are the epitome of all of that. I don't want to generalize here. There are some exceptions, but however, not many. I've been a member of these associations. Not many are not many are an exception to the rule here, especially when it comes to substantiating your knowledge. Many people have not a single bit of scientific backing to their name or to their claims. So ambiversion then became one term which became the third dimension, and omniversion was the fourth dimension. Omniversion means that you are on the whole spectrum. However, the scientific backing for that is not very strong for it. However, it's a quite young term, so there's not much scientific work going on at the moment, or has been done in the past, so it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just the one with the least amount of scientific backing, because some people claim omniversion is just an extreme case of ambiversion. You just switch very quickly on the whole spectrum. So what does that mean for organizations? We need to know, when we go into these four categories, extroversion, introversion, ambiversion, omniversion, what does that mean for your organization when you deal with people? Extroversion, probably you know in your organization a couple of people who are quite extroverted. Check your communication style. You very clearly and very quickly can claim the whole room for you and silence others even without you really seeing that you actually do that. Be aware that collaboration is important and that you need collaboration when you want to achieve goals together. You're very good at growing your network. You're very good with clients, usually due to your extroversion. However, also when you have extroversion, learn patience. And believe me, that is something which really hit way too close to home for me. I know how impatient I often am regarding certain decision-making processes, and learning that kind of patience is enriching my life. The more life experience I have, in other words, the older I get, I am dealing better with this. So learning how to be patient is a very important part here. When it comes to introversion, the very first thing you have to make sure is psychological safety. It's an important term which was pretty much coined a couple of years ago, because now we're delivering ongoing training on it. So a couple of years ago, no one wanted to talk about it, and then way too many things happened, especially in free enterprise and with leadership positions. And then suddenly it was all over the place, psychological safety, and you have to deliver on the promise. And of course you have to, because when people are introverted, very quickly, especially people with extroverted character traits, just walk over them and do worse things, sometimes without even recognizing them or without knowing that they did that. Psychological safety is key with introversion. Of course, you have to allow people to put written input in. When you force people and say, well, you are introverted, however, you need to present in front of other people. I force you to do so. You need to go to that meeting. You need to stand up in front of people. Of course, with training and coaching, you can help people a lot to go from catastrophic to probably acceptable or even good. But when it's deeply ingrained in someone's personality, you will not make someone who is a complete introvert suddenly being the rock star on a stage. That simply does not happen. Also take care with introverts about the deep work needs. When they want to have deep work, allow them to do so. When you say, sorry, we just have one big office, it's noisy, but you have to deal with it. No, they don't have to. They simply perform worse then. It's not their fault then. It's the leader's fault not granting not serving their deep work needs. And very important as well, and I've been there on the lucky side, but that's not the point here, fair recognition for introverts. I can tell you, as someone who works in sales for a couple of decades now, very often the extroverted people, and I was on the lucky side of that, I, as a salesperson, as a trainer and coach, when I got client business done, you often get a ton of recognition for that from leaders, while everyone in the office doesn't get any of the recognition. So be aware that introverts need the same amount of recognition, maybe in a different way, maybe not on the stage, maybe in a personal way, maybe a bit more detailed, but they need a fair amount of recognition. Anything else is not fair game. When we talk about ambiversion, and that's the place where I feel home, you often have people who work in mediation. That's basically, people call me in because something went wrong. So mediation is probably something I do all day long. You need flexible working structures. Also, that is what my business does. Very important when you have ambiverts. And now we have something here which doesn't apply to me, fortunately. But ambiverts are often the people who can help in many different situations. And you probably know in your organization as well, the people who always love to help. And what happens is, anyone takes their help. So be aware that ambiverts have a high risk of burnout, and of course you need to prevent that, because very quickly in organization it makes the round when people say, hey, you can go to that person, they never say no, and that's where the burnout can quickly happen. So burnout prevention here is very important. Allow ambiverts to find their natural skills, and that is the term in science where I really thought, bang on the money. That is exactly what I felt when I heard the term ambivert. When I grew up, there were two terms, either introversion or extroversion. And then you get put into these categories, one or the other. And I never felt at home with any of these. I mean, I couldn't, because the term probably came up in 2009 and then was substantiated in 2013 with the ambiversion. So I was way over 30 years old. If anyone had told me that I will run a business working internationally, leaving my home country, living in different other countries, I would have laughed at their faces. At the age of 10, I come from a very small village in northern Germany. I was born in Hamburg, but then my parents lived further north. Barmstedt, Schleswig-Holstein, northern Germany, small village, 8,000 people living there, or live there now. I think way less when I lived there and grew up there. So when I told my parents at the age of 10, I'm going to become a teacher and a public servant with a lifetime assignment, as you have it in Germany, everyone was just happy. Oh, the boy said something, and now he will have a job, which he probably does for the rest of his life. And then when studying teaching, I figured out that's not what I want to do. And then I went into free enterprise. And then suddenly things started to evolve. When you're an ambivert, finding your core strength really is a journey. And support is much needed here. I think if I had known the term ambivert at the age of 15, my life would have been easier. And I probably could have made a couple of better choices, especially job-wise and what I wanted to study. However, it wasn't there. And there's no reason to look back now. So it's very important that when you know the term right now and you have people where you think they're ambiverts, it's important to support them on their journey. When you have omniverted people, the omniversion, these often are people who lead a lot of autonomy. They need to be they need to be able to design their workspace. Very important is with omniverts, you need to help them to find their self-awareness, because often omniverts think they're good at everything, which is often not true, because no one is good at everything. So strengthen their self-awareness. They often need dynamic roles, and they are often very good at mentoring programs, taking them and also giving them, because that delivers guidance. And when they live through a couple of roles, they probably can give very good feedback on that as well. And before now we come to the point where anyone is now sitting there, oh, I'm going to write Niels an email after this, because I know what questions in there. The usual questions at the end of this is always, so which are the best and worst jobs for the different categories? Very important here, I'm going to give you a guideline. However, this is just a short list of what options are on the table. It is not a definite list and not the only list available. So when we look into the 4 categories, extraversion, the best jobs you usually find when they work in sales, public relations, often in consulting, event management. They often are leaders, team leadership. They often are very good with clients or customer service or anything connected with that. You often find these people in politics, also in media or the entertainment industry. When you want to make an extroverted person's life really difficult, then give them a deep research role hidden away somewhere in the door, locked, with lots of data science on their own. Maybe tell them to be a librarian, or maybe do solo programming, or maybe a bit of remote work with no interaction with others. That is probably the worst thing you can give to an extroverted person, and the person will leave reasonably quickly or just perform horribly. Very different with introverted person. Introversion means the best is when they can, for example, do research or writing. Often you find people in software developing very detailed work. Accounting or data analysis, engineering, you have a lot of introverts there. Graphic design also, especially when it comes to very specific details. And when you have something like editing or strategy planning where tiny, tiny details need to be considered, introversion. Introverts are often the ones doing these jobs. I don't want to generalize here. However, often introverts prefer to do these jobs over, and now we can talk about how to make an introvert's day really bad. When you want to make people with high introversion really leave your organization or not perform well, tell them they have to work in sales with daily public speaking gigs. Then you have to go to customer service. After that, you do event planning and, of course, conduct the event and go there and speak at the event. Put them into network-heavy roles with high-pressure leadership, and they would probably say, this is not for me. So very important here with introversion, give them roles that fit best. And now with the ambiversion, you have roles, and these are roles where I really thought, well, if I only had known this term earlier. So best for ambiversion, often project management, interim management. You have HR roles or marketing. You often also have business strategy, teaching, consulting, management, training, public relations, coaching, mentoring. Basically everything I do is in the ambiverted space. I really, really could have used this term earlier. However, when you now know people and they are in this space, help them on their way. The really worst jobs for an ambivert is highly repetitive tasks, extreme solitude rules, anything, data entry, night security, unstructured freelancing, do something with no clear goal in mind, absolutely hopeless. And I can tell you that is really hopeless then. When we go into omniversion, so you have the full spectrum here, you often have something like entrepreneurship, creative fields, from music to writing, filmmaking, but also consulting or journalism, crisis management, innovation-focused roles often. Startups often having a couple of startups and then losing interest in them also is a bit of an omniversion point here. The worst for an omniversion person is when you have highly rigid corporate roles with a lot of regulatory compliance, routine-heavy jobs, accounting, factory work, legal compliance, regulatory, or jobs requiring extreme and highest amount of consistency, for example, pilots or surgeons. And when I read one study where it said surgeon, I thought surgeon isn't really extreme consistency. You always have a couple of surgeries going on a week. And then I talked to surgeons, and I didn't know how many surgeries they did that were standard procedure. Boy, these are lots of jobs which they turn up 8 a.m. and they stand in the surgeon's room doing surgeries for 12 hours straight and then leaving home, and 90% of that is standard procedure, and with 10% saving people's lives or even more. So these jobs are not for someone on an omniversion spectrum point here. Very important now is, if we now come to a conclusion, it is very important to state that all of these roles are valuable. It is not the point, and again, it is not the point that you need to serve the wishes of so-called leaders who say, copy who I am, and then you will be successful. Every time you hear someone telling you, oh, you should be the next Steve Jobs or the next Tim Cook or the next whatever CEO someone throws around, no, this is never the answer. And by the way, that is one of the reasons why you never see anyone succeeding when they go to these $400 per event kind of keynote speaking style events where they listen to that person and keynote here and keynote there. You never see any one of these people succeeding anywhere for a reason, because they try to copy others, and that is never a successful approach. Every single role, every single aspect I mentioned here is valuable for the organization. It's not the point to simply serve leaders who say, copy me. It is important for every role, every position, every job to find the best suitable person from a qualification point of view, but also from a personality type point of view, including, of course, the cultural fit. Please do so, and I wish you all the best doing so. And when you now say, whoa, that's difficult, I think it is. Otherwise, it would be a job that anyone could do. And of course, that's not possible. It is challenging, of course. When you now like to discuss something, feel free to send me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. In the show notes of this podcast, I will put my email address. I'll put my LinkedIn, so you can connect with me on there. I will also put in there my website, nb-networks.biz. So feel free to go on there as well. You also find the transcript of this podcast on my website. And when you now say, hey, is it possible to have this live, like a live chat with you? Yes, we just had that last week. We have live sessions, but you can only find live sessions when you go to expert.nb-networks.com. When you go on that domain and you put your email address in there, you only receive one email every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content at free guarantee. And as soon as you do so, you receive this email on Wednesday morning with, first, free access to all articles, no paywall, no nothing. Second, full access to all podcasts, more than 400 episodes now, so feel free to listen to all of them or read them all if you like. And of course, very important, the third aspect is you always find the date, the time, and the access link for the next live session, so I'm looking forward to seeing you there. The third aspect, however, is the most important one. Apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change that you obviously want to see in your organization. I wish you all the best doing so. If you need help, contact me anytime. I'm answering every single message within 24 hours or less. And at the end of this podcast, there is only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.